everyone, I'm Ellie. Today we're going to be working on a Love Live Sunshine school uniform. I'm really excited to work on this project, and I'm even more excited that we get to use the skills we learned last week in our pleating video. If you haven't caught that yet, go ahead and click up on the iCard above and it will take you right to that video. So today we're going to be working on the pleated skirt for this costume. But there's something extra special about this build. I've decided to make it a budget build, which means that I have allotted myself $30 and that's all I get to spend on this costume, no more. So I have to be very careful with what materials I'm choosing and how I'm cutting my fabric and everything. So let's hope it goes well. Are you ready to get started? Let's go! The school uniform we're making today is from the anime Love Live Sunshine. It's a sequel to the anime Love Live School Idol project. Like I said before, this is a budget build, so I gave myself $30 and here are my materials. 2 yards of gray cotton, 2.5 of white cotton, half a yard of red cotton, 2 packs of bias tape, 2 spools of thread, 1 gray zipper, and a set of snaps. I came up with a total of $26.58, which gives me a little bit of room in case I need a few extra materials. The first step for making your skirt is cutting out the material, like always. I wanted to make sure I had enough room for my collar, so I double-checked where that needed to go and then marked off my material. I cut my fabric in half so I could connect the 2 halves and have 1 extra long piece so we have enough material for pleating. I put the 2 halves of my cotton together with a very simple straight stitch. I made sure the edges were perfectly straight and went along the seam. After that, I turned it inside out and stitched the line again. This is what's called a French seam, and it makes it so all your edges are contained. Now we can move on to hemming the skirt. I wanted to make my hem as small as possible. So I folded over a very tiny amount of fabric and ironed that down and pinned along with my pins. I did this to the whole length of the fabric. Once the whole hem was pinned, it was time to stitch it down. So again, using a straight stitch, I went along the edge of my hem as close to the edge as possible. I want my uniform to look as clean as possible, so I'm doing a French hem along the edge of my skirt. This is just like a French seam and is used to hide any raw edges. To make a French hem, I fold my hem over one more time and then iron and pin it just like before. Once the French hem is pinned, we can stitch it down with a straight stitch. I want to be sure to take my time so my stitches look uniform and run directly along the bottom of my hem. Once the hem is in place, we can begin adding our details, which in this case is 2 stripes of bias tape. I used my ruler to measure how far away I wanted my bias tape to sit and then pinned it along the entire hem of my skirt. Once I got the first stripe into place, I decided to add on the second. Again, I'm just pinning it into place, but this time rather than using a ruler, I'm just eyeballing where I think it should go. Now we can attach our stripes. While this is just a simple straight stitch, I want to make sure that I am as close to the edge of my bias tape as possible. So I'm using my presser foot as a guide to where my needle will go. I stitch down both sides of the first stripe and then I can move on to the second stripe. When I attach the second stripe, I'm kind of ignoring my pins and paying more attention to my presser foot. Your presser foot is automatically even and will always be the same, so it's great to use it as a guide. Now that we have all the details attached to our skirt, we can begin pleating it. Here I'm marking out our pleats as 2.5 inches. I noticed that the uniforms have 12 pleats all the way around and I wanted to make sure mine had 12 pleats as well. So I divided the length of my fabric by 12 and came up with 2.5 inches for each pleat. Once my pleats were folded into place, I went over them with my iron to give them a nice crisp look. Now that my pleats are all pinned and ironed into place, I can go along the top with a basting stitch to hold them into place. Now that my pleats are held into place, I can finish up the edge of the skirt. Here I'm doing a French seam along the other side seam. So I stitch it with the wrong sides together, and then I flip it out and stitch it with the right sides together, making sure that there are no open edges. Once I have my side seams finished, I can attach my zipper. First I attach to one side, then the other. Once I have the zipper installed, I cut off all my excess material as close to the stitches as possible. Then, on the right side of my fabric, I stitch right next to my zipper, so that way all that excess material is caught in between my stitches and won't fray and look bad. Alright friends, it's time for some real talk. I might make YouTube videos and make a whole bunch of costumes. I may have gone to school for costuming, but that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. Unfortunately, when I pleated this skirt, I made it about 1.5 inches too big, which means that it just wasn't fitting right and did not look at all the way I wanted it to. I also ended up running out of material for the waistband, and it was overall just not going the way I wanted it to. So I took a step back, waited a little bit, and I seam ripped the whole thing apart. Everything you just saw me do was undone except for the stripes and the hem. So I went back through and reattached the zipper, and then I made a new waistband out of the material. I had to replete the whole thing. It was a hot mess and a half. I cannot lie to you. So let this just be a lesson that mistakes happen all the time to everyone. There's nothing you can really do to stop it except for go slow and take your time, which I obviously didn't do. So let's get right back into it. I'm not going to show you everything that I had to redo. That's just a little repetitive, but you'll see the finishing touches for this skirt. So let's go. So I took a couple days break, and here I am seam ripping the entire skirt. I have to take off the zipper, the side seam, and all the pleats. I won't make you watch all that seam ripping, but just know that it happened. Now I'm making a waistband for our skirt. As I said before, I ran out of the gray material, so this is as wide as my waistband could be. I folded over one edge and then folded it over upon itself. This way I have one raw edge that I can attach to the top edge of my skirt. So I pin that all together and then attach it with a straight stitch. Once the waistband's been attached, I flip it inside out, and on the right side, pin along the edge of the waistband. This is again called stitching in the ditch. I'm not good at it, but I'm trying to get better. So I run along the edge of my waistband with a nice straight stitch and make sure to catch all of the material in my stitch. Once my waistband is attached to my skirt, all that's left is adding a snap, so that way it fits snugly around my waist. We did it! Oh, I'm so happy to be done with this skirt. It felt like it took a million years, but I think it turned out really nice. I'm totally happy with the length. It feels like one of the costumes they use in the live concerts, which I really love the look of. I'm also really proud that our bias tape came out so straight along the hem. It looks really, really good. I'm hoping next week will be a little bit smoother for us. This week was kind of rough, but that's all we can do, right? Nothing we can do to change it now. So let's hope next week will be better. So until next time, keep sewing, stay positive, and have fun. I'll see you all later. Bye!